Now that you've done step 1 and 2 of backward design lesson planning, step 3 is figuring out what is the lesson instruction that you want. Now remember, traditionally teachers approach lesson planning by figuring out what activities to do first, but in backwards design we do it last. Now, but you have chosen a clear and measurable action verb that's matched to an appropriate assessment already. That means you just simply need to find an activity that'll give the students multiple opportunities to reach that lesson objective. You can't do that if you don't know the lesson objective, and that's why it's so important to do that first. So let's revisit Gary. Gary was the person who was showing the video for Romeo and Juliet. If we take the lesson objective, students will interpret a scene from Romeo and Juliet. Then we think about the action of interpretation, which requires students to speak and write open responses. And we ask ourselves, does a video showing a video where they watch passively help students do that? And the answer is no. And so that means Gary shouldn't use the video unless Gary showed a particular scene from the video and asked the students to watch and take notes so they can debate an interpretation of the scene. Then the video would be appropriate, helping students do that. Instead, Gary gave students no specific directions during the video and gave them a closed response multiple choice test to measure learning, and wasted that great activity he could have done because he didn't even know why he was showing the video. So backwards design gets you to use your class time as a powerful tool in which you can always, everything in the class is always used to try to reach the lesson objective. And choosing the lesson activity is easy now because you know exactly what you're looking for. So for example, if I want students to write an open response, I would choose something like journal writing. If they need to speak in a closed response, I'm going to play a game of Jeopardy. If I need them to do something, which is an open response, paint a picture of their favorite animal. If they have to do more than one behavior, a complicated behavior, then we go into the more complicated stuff like projects and presentations. But I know that I am now choosing correctly. The real challenge is knowing whether that lesson activity is going to be engaging. So there's also some elements we can look for to make sure that whatever learning activity we choose will be student-centered. And the research is supporting that when students do something, they learn. When a teacher does something, the teacher learns. So we want to be able to focus our instruction strategies on the student. One way to do this is follow the 7 elements of CREDE. CREDE stands for the Center of Research on Education, Diversity, and Excellence, and represents 7 research-based lesson strategies that UH Manoa and UC Berkeley have found to be effective for teaching culturally and linguistically diverse students. Much of the research has been done examining the teaching practices in Native Hawaiian communities, and CREDE has partnered all over the islands with these folks here, and I've also changed my teaching by applying the 7 strategies. So here's what I ask myself when I'm developing my lesson instruction to make it more student-centered. Do I have anything that gets the students to think? Do I give the students opportunity to talk about the information? Do I provide choices for the students so they can choose something that's meaningful for them and something they can handle, whether they're gifted or whether they're special needs? Does the lesson activity allow them to collaborate? The difference between groups and collaboration is roles. When students have clear roles, they become accountable and they will follow through on those roles, and everyone will work together. If you have just a group, then it always turns out that one person does all the work and some people don't do any work. The next one is, does the lesson activity involve the teacher or students showing you how to do the activity? And so we need clear ideas of what it looks like at the end and how to get there. And so this is everything in which you have clear instructions, you have a clear example, you have everything that is given to the students so they know exactly what to do. Is the lesson activity have meaning to the students? It turns out that brains don't process any information if they don't connect to it in some way. So this is probably the most important one. Why should a student learn your information? And then finally, is new language thrown in throughout the lesson, and so that you are getting them not separate isolated skills, not a vocabulary test on the side, but the language is used in a meaningful way in the activity. So when you ask yourself those 7 questions, it turns out that students learn. And I made a mnemonic for you to use in your brain while you're thinking about those things in your lesson. And it's called Teach and Model Meaningful Language, where T stands for Think and Talk, C stands for Choose and Collaborate, Model Meaningful Language. Okay. There is a very powerful theorist behind this. It's one of what we call the Big Four, and Lev Vygotsky's sociocultural theory is the one that lies behind crede. And so just for your information, you should know that the very powerful ideas are behind those 7 elements. Once you have those seven elements, your students are going to love you. You're going to have something in which you can assess, and it's going to be something connected to your lesson outcome. And then finally, you're just going to need to make sure that you have written out your lesson instruction so that you will be able to use this as a tool for you in the following ways. When you write out your instruction, it helps you prepare about what you're going to do. It can help you decide whether the steps are logical and whether you left anything out. It helps guide you during the lesson because you can go back and check it during the lesson. It helps you reflect after the lesson because you can then look at pieces and be able to make changes right there in the actual lesson steps. And then if you teach it a year later, I guarantee you will not remember if you don't write it down, but it helps you remember what you did. So writing the lesson instructions is very important, and here down here are the most important ideas that you got to follow. It's got to be step by step and logical. It's got to have enough detail so that another teacher or a sub could do the activity without you there. And it should be focused on how to do something rather than what to do. So for example, get the materials is telling you what to do, not how to go about getting those materials. Then finally, you should make sure you clarify the person doing the action. Is it the teacher or students? So if you say something like, get the ice, break open the ice, it's not clear whether you're talking about the teacher doing that or the students. And if you click here, you can get an example of well-written instructional steps. So that's it. Those are the steps of backwards design. That is something that's so powerful. I would love to see you do that and incorporate that for the rest of your teaching career. Okay, good luck.